Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now, today we just saw a new report come out. Actually, we saw a whole bunch of news come out, to be honest, but there's two things I wanted to focus on really specifically. So the first one is we actually saw VanEck 2025 predictions. We're going to go over those today on the channel. And then also we did see a developer report looking at kind of what the development activity on various crypto chains has been looking like. So we're going to go into both of those, but before we start there, I did want to kind of just breeze through crypto bubbles and also just the Solana chart, because Solana has, per this report, been named the #1 ecosystem in crypto, which is pretty crazy. So I want to take a look at that. But first off, what we can see here, again, pretty mixed day in the market overall. We are seeing Jasmy jump a little bit, which is good. Virtual has been another one that's been moving really, really strongly over the past several weeks. So that's one probably to keep an eye on. Overall, we are still down for the week, but things starting to turn a little bit more green. Obviously, we are still seeing a pretty decent chunk of deep red here. Now, looking at the Solana chart, we can kind of see that's how things have been a little bit for Solana too. We did see a pretty strong push up, and then about towards the third week of November, it's been kind of just down, like a general downtrend since then. We have broken out of this level of support that we were seeing here for a second. We did hit this lower level of support, and then now we're kind of bounced back up into this general liquidity zone that we have been seeing. So we'll see if it stays within this liquidity zone or not. Overall, I think either way, it's kind of just making a consolidationary period. We have seen it's broken out of like the highs that we saw back in March, and it's kind of stayed above these. We did actually see very briefly some new all-time highs as well. So things looking overall decent on the Solana chart. If you are wanting to trade Solana, Bitcoin, Ethereum, anything for that matter, feel free to use my link in the description below. It's to BTCC. I am working with BTCC for another month. Also, they are doing a 10% bonus on first-time deposits, which, if you ask me, it's a fantastic deal. I mean, if you're looking for a new place to trade anyway, I feel like why not get an extra 10% bonus on your money? Obviously, you can make your own decision with that, but they also have up to $10,055 in bonuses in addition to the 10% bonuses that you could be seeing on your first-time deposits. In addition, they've been around for 13 years, so you don't really need to worry too much about them just being like a pop-up exchange. It's only around for one cycle. Obviously, they've been around probably longer than most of us have been in crypto. Also, 300 plus crypto futures and up to 500x leverage, so a really great offering of different like pairs and all that type of stuff. I never do 500x leverage personally, but if that's something that you're interested in, you can feel free to do that. Also, no VPN or KYC necessary if that is something that you are interested in. Now, moving on though, I did want to get into the news that we are seeing today, because we do have a decent bit of stuff to go over. So first off, we're going to be looking at VanEck, and what we can see is that they had 10 crypto predictions for 2025. The first one is the one I really wanted to kind of focus on mainly because what we can see is they've got price predictions, which is what everybody's looking to see here. We can see that bull market hits a medium-term peak in Q1, sets new highs in Q4. We project Bitcoin to be valued around 180,000, Ethereum to trade above 6,000, and Solana to exceed 500, which is over a 2x from where we're at now, which is really good news. And then Sui to surpass $10. This would be just above a 2x for Sui based on where it's sitting at now currently as well. We are going to go over the rest of these 10 predictions, but I did want to kind of breeze through them a little quickly. If you are interested in reading into these in a little bit more detail, you can feel free go look at VanEck on X, and you can find all their predictions there. But prediction number 2 is that the US is going to embrace a Bitcoin strategic reserve with increased crypto adoption. Multiple new spot ETPs will be approved. Ethereum ETPs will include staking, which in my opinion, this would be massive. I think this is a major reason as to why the ETFs of Ethereum have not been doing well. And then also both Ethereum and Bitcoin ETPs will allow in-kind transactions. Prediction number 3, value of tokenized securities exceeds 50 billion. Securities currently are sitting at 12 billion, and most of these are not on open source chains, they're on permission chains. So seeing a potential just under 5x growth here, I think would be really cool. Also seeing more of this coming to open source chains, I do think would be really awesome. I'm a little bit skeptical about how much is going to come to open source chains, just because banks usually like to kind of obfuscate things and make things a little bit difficult to see. I think that's part of the whole game, but we'll see how that goes. Stablecoins are poised to revolutionize payments. I think this one is pretty obvious. I think this has kind of been a writing on the wall. What we are seeing here is about $100 billion per day. They're expecting that to almost triple to $300 billion a day. I believe it, honestly. I mean, stablecoins have really been the thing that has found biggest like use case within crypto overall. So I think that's a pretty safe guess if you ask me. Prediction number 5, 1 million new AI agents will emerge. This essentially, in my opinion, is just kind of continuing on the trend that we are going to see AI continue to do very, very well this cycle, particularly projects that create agents that are actually valuable and useful and do stuff. Prediction number 6, Bitcoin Layer 2s will reach 100,000 Bitcoin in total value locked. This is building on what we've already seen as a 7x growth in 2024 that brought TVL to 30,000 Bitcoin TVL. So we could see an over 3x in 2025 from what we are seeing on the Bitcoin ecosystem. Any of you who have been longtime viewers to my channel know that I'm very, very bullish on kind of this like Bitcoin super cycle. I think it's all going to be about playing into Bitcoin, and that's really what we're going to be looking into. So we'll see how that ends up turning out. Also, they have a prediction that Ethereum is actually going to continue to grow fairly well, with Ethereum blob space generating $1 billion in fees, driven basically by layer 2 adoption, rollups, high fee use case, all this type of stuff. So basically, they're expecting to see a lot more traction and traffic within the Ethereum ecosystem. Number 8, DeFi hits all-time highs with 4 trillion DEX volumes and 200 billion TVL, fueled by AI-related tokens, consumer-facing dApps, and tokenized assets driving liquidity and adoption. I think this is probably a pretty fair bet to make as well. We did go over TVL yesterday. We have not hit previous highs of the previous bull market. TVL isn't everything, but it is a fairly good indicator to essentially take a temperature check on how healthy an ecosystem is. Obviously, Ethereum has like the vast majority of TVL just because it's the one that's kind of been around the longest and has most of the valuable projects built on top of it. So that's another thing to keep an eye out on. Prediction number 9, NFT trading volumes are projected to rebound to 30 billion in 2025 despite the downturn. Standout projects like Pudgy Penguins transitioning into a consumer brand through collectible toys, Miladies gaining cultural prominence, yada yada, all that type of stuff. Basically, we're expecting to see an NFT comeback. I do think that this is probably a fairly reasonable prediction. I think NFTs have kind of been hated on for a while, and also I think NFTs, in my opinion, they kind of serve as more of like a late cycle type of thing. So until we hit later on in the crypto cycle, I don't think we'll see much movement out of NFTs, but I do think that this is something that we will see rebound in a pretty big way. Now, prediction number 10 is dApp tokens narrow the performance gap with L1 tokens. In 2024, Layer 1 blockchain tokens outperformed dApp tokens by 2x, but the launch of innovative dApps in AI and decentralized physical infrastructure networks DePIN is expected to drive a performance shift. I agree with this. I think what we're seeing is as dApps actually do more useful things, we're going to see more of the value accrual move to those. Right now, I don't really think people know how to value Layer 1s. They're not sure if they're supposed to value it as like a business that makes money, or if they're supposed to value it as like an ecosystem or like a platform. Think about how something like Walmart and Meta are valued very, very differently. It's because Walmart is essentially valued on the money that it makes, and Meta is like, I guess, kind of valued on the money it makes, but also not at the same time, right? Because part of the value of Meta is the fact that it has 4 billion users or something like that at this point, right? So like that value is translated very differently. And I think people are really trying to figure out where layer 1s fit into that. And so some are overvalued, some are undervalued. I think right now they're probably pushing closer to overvalued, but then dApp tokens, I also think have a ton of opportunity because they really are like essentially pushing real use cases. Now, moving on, I want to do a quick look at the developer report. So the developer report, we're going to be looking at two different things. We're going to be looking at fastest growing ecosystems and then also just top ecosystems, because obviously fastest growing and top are not always the same, and we can see different things. So by overall developers, we can see the fastest growing ecosystem was actually Eigenlayer, followed then by Aptos, Solana, Internet Computer, Base, Aztec, Stacks, Ton, Stellar, and Sui. So we've heard a lot of these names. We've talked about a lot of these names. Obviously, this is a Solana video. We're showing that Solana is actually the third largest or the third fastest growing ecosystem. We'll get there in a second because I know that I did say Solana is the number one ecosystem. More on that here in a moment. And then by full-time developers, we are seeing that it starts with Eigenlayer, then goes to Internet Computer, then Say, then Aztec, then Chainlink, then Base, then Celestia, Mina, Polygon ZK VM, and followed up by Starknet. So a little bit of a difference what we're seeing here. Obviously, we're seeing that Eigenlayer is top in both, so it doesn't really matter which way you look at it. Eigenlayer is the fastest growing ecosystem. Internet Computer is probably the second behind that in terms of like averages, because we are seeing, you know, kind of some variations as we go down the list. Base is probably, I would say, the third in terms of average overall. But overall, I mean, you know, Solana is still looking really good by overall developers. And I think since that ecosystem is so large, we're going to get to that here in a second. Like, this is a pretty impressive number. And so the next thing I wanted to take a look at is just more of what devs are doing overall. And so what we can see is there were 39,000 new devs added into crypto in 2024. We can see this is a downtrend actually for a third consecutive year. We were peaking here in 2022, coming further down in 2023, and then also in 2024. Given that Q4 has kind of popped off so substantially, we may see this potentially tick up, because remember, this is only through Q3 of 2024, which had been the end of September. all of the fun stuff has happened kind of after that. So this may tick up and we may break this lower low. If not, I do think we'll probably see something similar to this number in 2025. We frankly might even blow this number out of the water in 2025 if we get some more of that like regulatory clarity that we are looking for from several governments throughout the world. I would say chiefly the United States though. Now moving on, we are seeing 3,000 new crypto devs explored crypto every month in 2024. So decent, again, down from the lows that we saw in kind of 2022 area. But we can see that Solana has become the #1 ecosystem for new developers, and it became that in July of 2024. This is the first time something not named Ethereum has been the #1 ecosystem since 2016. We can see back in here, probably about February of 2016 was the last time something not named Ethereum was the #1 ecosystem to develop on. And before that, it was kind of flipping back and forth with Bitcoin, which makes sense because in 2016, that's when a lot of like the smart contracts and internet of crypto and all this type of stuff kind of came around. So this I would say is a very very important thing that we are seeing here. Now, one thing that I do want to kind of clarify a little bit is obviously ETH is kind of hemorrhaging developers, but we do also need to understand that we all have layer 2s on Ethereum now, right? We can see Base is in this mix. We can see Polygon is in this mix. Both of these are layer 2s within Ethereum. So obviously Ethereum is going to be essentially bleeding some of their developers to some of these other projects. Now looking, we can see again, Solana, #1 ecosystem for new devs in 2024. Ethereum was the second. We can see 7,600 new developers explored Solana, which is insane. Obviously a massive number, dwarfing basically everything else. We can see Ethereum is second. And actually one important thing to clarify here is Ethereum ecosystem includes Ethereum mainnet and the ETH L2s. So this is a full comprehensive picture of Ethereum, not just the mainnet, which is good information to know. Other than that, we had essentially just kind of a catch-all of other, basically everything else, followed then actually by Internet Computer, which I would say pretty impressive given, again, what we talk about on the channel here is fundamental analysis and looking at what is the price versus what is the value, right? And in my opinion, Internet Computer having, let's say, just say the third largest community of developers, they're not the third largest by market cap, right? This is something that I think is really important to note. We can also see from a Solana perspective, Solana is bigger than Ethereum, yet it's like a quarter of the size. So this to me is a massive Solana play as well. I think we've got a huge upside potentially here looking at Solana. We're looking at ICP, I think something very similar. Bitcoin, again, down here, we'll have to kind of see how that development goes. One thing I did want to also bring up here, because this is something that people give me a hard time about constantly, is I am not very bullish on both Cardano and XRP, right? I think that's relatively well understood. It's not because I don't like those projects. I think just right now, I'm always looking at everything in terms of risk versus reward. We can see Cardano 348 developers, XRP 178. Not even close. I mean, they're like way down the list from what we are seeing from a lot of these other major chains. Even Sui, which is a relatively new like up and comer, they're still pretty far up on this list here. And so this is what I'm looking at in terms of like risk versus reward and what is providing the most growth as well as the like best potential payoff for an investment if I am going to be making one. And so I'm obviously going to be looking up here in terms of how large the ecosystem is, as well as looking here in terms of the growth. Obviously, Internet Computer looking fantastic, both in terms of the size of the ecosystem as well as the growth of the ecosystem. Solana also looking really good. Obviously, it's the #1 ecosystem, as well as the third fastest growing ecosystem in 2024. There are other things here that we are seeing, like obviously Base looking really good, Eigenlayer looking really good, Sui even still number 10 on top fastest growing ecosystems. So there's a lot going on here, I think, that we can kind of pull out of this. This is, again, less of like a technical analysis looking purely at the chart, what the chart's going to do, and more of a fundamental analysis of how are these projects actually performing, right? Because if you have something that's worth $100 billion, but nobody wants to build on it and there's no valuable projects, eventually the bubble will pop and everybody's going to realize, oh, we actually own $100 billion of nothing, right? And so that's essentially what I'm always trying to keep an eye on. Obviously, I'm always looking to play games to make money, But at the end of the day, I only really have conviction in the things that I actually believe in and think there is a future for. And so obviously, you need to make your own decision. This is not financial advice. Hopefully you can kind of read into some of the data that we've been over today and try and start to pick out some of those that you actually think look to be like, potentially a good value play. But ultimately that's essentially what I'm looking for here. Hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and subscribe because it really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, feel free to drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those, so if you have anything you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next video.